All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final winter webinar of this year's installment. We're in about our, I think, third winter of this year so far, so it's a good way to end things off. But today we are welcoming Vicki McKay, our resident species at risk biologist here at the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority, and she will be doing her presentation on people-powered science. So just a couple housekeeping things for today's show. The webinar will be approximately an hour, maybe a little bit longer, but if it's going over that hour mark and you need to skedaddle, we will not be offended if you need to head out. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, we do just ask that you put them in the Q&A instead of the chat. If you want to use the chat at all to even just introduce yourself or comment at all, that would be great. But if you have any questions that you really want answered, please put them in the Q&A so that they don't get lost, and then we'll get to them at the end of the presentation for a Q&A session. There also will be a few links and things like that for people to look at or access. Don't worry if you miss it during the presentation. This presentation will be posted on our LTVCA YouTube channel, and we can always get you those links at the end of the presentation as well. So my name is Alyssa. I am the Urban Stewardship Technician here at the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority, and I will be one of your hosts for today. So before we get too far into it, we just want to do a First Nations acknowledgement. But before I do, I want everyone to really think about what these words mean to them and then how they can incorporate it into their everyday lives, and make a difference in how you live your life. It's one thing to just see these words, but it's another to internalize them and actually bring them into action. So we will begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of First Nations people who have long-standing relationships to the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. We also acknowledge the local Lower Thames River watershed communities of this area, which include the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, Munsee Delaware Nation, and Caldwell Nation. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and all of the original peoples of Turtle Island. We are thankful for the opportunity to live, learn, and share with mutual respect and appreciation. Sorry about my dog there. So if you're not familiar with who we are the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority. All right. Yes, so we are the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority, and we are actually one of 36 conservation authorities here in Ontario. There are 31 of us down here in the south and 5 of us up north, and we all work together to protect and enhance the environment. Now, our jurisdiction is along Lake Erie, so we cover just Leamington on our western point, all the way up to just the southern tip of London at our eastern point. Now we have a few different departments that all work together to do the awesome work that we do. So we have a water quality department that monitors our water quality and reports on it so that we know how our water quality is for both people and wildlife. We have a species at risk department, which Vicki manages, our resident speaker today. We have a planning and regulations department who make sure that we are building in safe places and that we're geared towards the future for climate change and flooding and things like that. We have our stewardship department, which I am a part of, where we do our on-the-ground implementation. So things like wetlands, tree plantings, tall grass prairies. And then we have our agricultural programming as well, who work with farmers in conservation efforts. Now, just a little plug for our services, specifically through the stewardship department that we're offering right now. So if you do happen to have a lot of land, acreage, things like that, in our Lower Thames Valley watershed, we do have funding available if you want to do some restoration projects for things like the drainage buffer strips, windbreaks, prairie, tree planting, and wetland creation. So if you're interested in any of that, or even just having us out there to take a quick site visit, please email stewardship@ltvca.ca. And then we also have our urban stewardship department, which I run. So those are for people who don't, own those huge swaths of land, maybe in our watershed, but they still want to get involved in restoration. So we're always looking for volunteers or volunteer groups, and we're happy to set up events for you and your volunteer group. Again, whether you want a tree plant, pick up litter, remove invasive species, create a pollinator garden, we are always looking to have you out. So please email if you're interested, urbanstewardship@ltvca.ca. And then just some upcoming events. So we are selling large stock trees right now. Our tree deadline is coming up for March 31st. We do still have some species left. So if you're interested, please look at our website or social media. And we also have some tree giveaways coming up as well. We have one scheduled for down here in the west at CM Wilson Conservation Area, and one scheduled up east at the Dutton Community Center. So again, that info will be on our website and social media. But if you would like early access to sign up for a free tree, please sign up for our newsletter, which you can also find on our website. And then we are relaunching our agricultural program, and we're just having a few welcome events for this. They're free, but you do have to sign up. They're breakfast and BMPs, so best management practices. You can find them on our website again. So in Tilbury, that'll be March 30th, in Ridgetown, March 31st, and in Mount Bridges, April 2nd. Now, just before we present, I'll just introduce our speaker here. So with decades of experience in conservation, Vicki McKay has a deep passion for protecting and restoring Ontario's natural heritage. Vicki has worked at Point Pelee National Park, Parks Canada Agency, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, the Ministry of Natural Resources, the Lake Erie Management Unit, the Rondeau Bay Watershed Rehabilitation Program, the Federation of Ontario Naturalists, now Ontario Nature, and the Norfolk Field Naturalists. Her current work as a species at risk biologist at the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority involves monitoring and recovery of 33 fish and mussel species. An avid birder and nature enthusiast, she is especially passionate about species at risk and has been actively restoring her own property in southwestern Ontario to create a haven for wildlife while making citizen science part of her daily routine. Okay, and with that, I'm going to hand it on over to our speaker, Vicki. And just a reminder, if you do have questions throughout the presentation, please just drop them in the Q&A and we'll get to them at the end.
Okay, can you see that okay?
Yep, perfect.
Right, and let me just clear this bar at the top. There we go. All right. Thank you very much for coming out this evening and for your interest in people-powered science. I'm glad that you're taking the time and you're interested in the topic. And I've got a problem already. There we go. All right. So I'm going to talk to you about what citizen science is this evening and how you can get involved through species identification apps and citizen science apps, both on your phone and through online portals, as well as some best practices and why you should even bother. So we'll dive right in. Citizen science is the collection and analysis of data relating to the natural world by members of the general public, but it's typically as a part of a collaborative project with professional scientists. The key is that you do not need to be an expert. There are easy to use cell phone apps and computer portals for you to use, and they're available on both iPhone and Android platforms. This provides species identification in the palm of your hand. It gives you suggestions for species identification, and they're typically free, but often require you to sign in with a username and password. So there's a wide variety available. This is only a small amount of what is available in the area that I'll be covering this evening. So I am a species at risk biologist. My focus with the Lower Thames is on aquatic species, so fish and freshwater mussels. And I'm not going to spend all night talking about aquatics, but I am going to talk about both fish and mussels as part of the presentation. So the bait fish primer was developed by Fisheries and Oceans Canada as a way for people who are angling and wanting to collect bait fish to be able to identify which bait fish they are using or collecting and whether or not they are legal. So the left of the screen shows the main web or main page on your phone, and you start or can start with identifying a bait fish. Now, since I'm a species at risk biologist, I want to lead you to a number of places to show you some of the species at risk that are found in this watershed. And there are actually 18 fish species at risk here. I will just show you a few. So this primer is set up using what is called a scientific key. And some of you may be familiar with it. Essentially, it asks a question that has two possible answers. It may be a yes or no, but it has two possible answers, and depending on which answer you provide, you'll be taken to another question, which you answer yes or no, and you keep going down until you get to one or a few species. So I'm going to lead you in a particular direction, but it's the same sort of thing you'd be doing if you were looking at an individual fish to try and identify. So the first question here is, are there separate dorsal spines on the back of this fish? And they give you examples. A and B have separate dorsal spines. They look like spikes. C does not, and we're going to say no. These are three separate screens in order. So on the left, how many fins are on the back? One or two. I'm going to select one. Is the caudal fin forked? That means it has a big indent in it, and the caudal fin is the same as the tail fin. I'm going to say yes. And then does the fish have a large dorsal fin that runs most of the length of its back? And they have two examples here where you can see what that looks like. I'm going to say no. Next, does the body have a sawtooth keel on the belly? Now, this sounds like it's starting to get into really technical terms, but it's not too difficult. Essentially, a sawtooth keel is very much kind of like a sharp edge to the belly. And if you felt along it, it would be rather sharp and rough. Not sharp enough to cut, but fairly rough. So again, I'm going to say no here. Now, the path I'm leading you down leads to a group of sucker species. And so the next question, does the mouth have thick lips with pimples or grooves? I'm going to answer yes. Now, the first one that we want to rule out is the fish with a large rectangular head with the top of the head either flat or concave between the eyes. And there's a picture here. This is the northern hognose sucker. It's a very common species, and it's not the one that I'm looking for. So I'm going to answer no. Next question, are there small or large scales? I'm going to say large. Is the mouth nearly terminal, and is the lateral line absent? So a terminal mouth is right at the very front of the fish. Subterminal is just slightly towards the underside of the fish. And the lateral line, it's not the colored line that appears on some fish. It is the actual pores that, if you look closely, form a line along the side of the fish, and they actually sense pressure changes in the water. So this question I am going to answer yes to. And if I do that, there is only one fish species that meets all the criteria, and that is a lake chubsucker. If I click on the example or the link here, it will take me to a larger picture of the fish, and it will tell me it's a species at risk and that it is illegal to collect. It will also provide me information on the characteristics to help you identify it, the size, other similar species, its Ontario distribution and habitat, and its use as a bait fish in this particular case, not being allowed to use it as a bait fish. Now, if we back up and say that the mouth is not terminal and that there is a lateral line, this is going to take us towards some other suckers. If there is a row of dark spots, it's going to take us to the spotted sucker. And this is another species at risk. And as a result, it is illegal to collect. And again, we can click into it and find additional information. Oops. Next, if we answer no, that it does not have a row of dark spots, this takes us to a group of species. They are still suckers, but they are known as the red horses. And red horses can be divided into two groups based on the color of the tail fin or caudal fin, either red or gray. So if we select red, we'll see 3 different species. All of them are illegal to collect. One is a species at risk. If we select gray, again, all three remaining are illegal to collect, and one, the black red horse, is a species at risk. Now, if we go back to the main page, we can take a look at all of the bait fish that could potentially be collected. And if you look at the tabs on the bottom, we can sort these by the families that they belong to. So we can take a look at just the carps and minnows, which is shown on the right-hand side of the screen. And you can see the first 2, they recommend caution if you collect them. And the reason is that they look very similar to species that are illegal to collect. And so unless you know your identification really well, it may be a better idea not to collect them. The next 3 are illegal to collect because they are species at risk. Now, this doesn't mean that you're in trouble if you accidentally catch one of these species. The important thing is that if you do accidentally catch one of these species, you return it to the water that it came from as quickly as possible, because we don't want to impact the populations. It doesn't mean that you take your bucket to a different fishing spot, then take a look at your fish, say, oh, I have a species at risk here, and release it into a new water body. You want to be doing these checks while you are collecting the fish. So, other options for looking at fish in the bait fish primer are along the bottom of the screen. You can look at all the species that are legal to collect, all the species that are illegal to collect, which are the invasive species and the species at risk, as well as all the ones that you should use caution in collecting because they are difficult to identify from other species. If we go back to the main page, you can also sort by invasive species, all of which are illegal to collect. And this is the one place where you can actually start a little bit of citizen science and reporting. So here, if you find a goldfish, you can either call a hotline or report the sighting in EDMAPS, which is another cell phone app, and I will talk about it later. So one of the things that's really important here is that the way that some of these invasive species do get into our watercourses is people either taking aquarium fish and flushing them down the toilet, or taking aquarium fish or fish that they have in their backyard pond that they created, like a koi pond, and cleaning it out and releasing the fish that were there into the local watercourse. And as a result, a lot of places where we do fish sampling in southern Ontario, we can actually catch goldfish now. So please keep your fish in their tanks and in their ponds where they belong. So the last thing that you can do is look at species at risk. Again, all illegal to collect, and you can look at details for the individual species. Now, next is an app called Merlin. Now, you can do a little bit of citizen science with Merlin, but a lot of it is helping you with the identification. It will allow you to identify by sound or by photographs. So we'll start with sound, and as soon as you press the sound button, it begins to record. And the longer you leave it, the greater number of species it will potentially listen if there are more species in the area. And as a species calls multiple times, the first time it calls, it gets added to the list. Second and further times it calls, you'll see it highlighted in yellow, as you can see across the screen here. Now, if you want to know more about an individual bird, then you can click on that bird and whoops. A new screen will open up. It will, you can then click into different recordings of the typical songs of that particular species. And that can help you verify if what you are actually hearing is what Merlin is telling you you're hearing. Now, there is a huge caution with Merlin as well as many of the other apps, and that is Merlin is not perfect. So please do not just accept what Merlin is saying. It is meant to be a learning aid, and it's a very good learning aid. But in order to ensure good citizen science, it's imperative that you verify Merlin's identifications. There are many people out there that will report rare bird occurrences based on Merlin. Merlin said it was this, therefore it must be. And they're reporting species that have never been found in Canada before or never been found in the local area before. And that sort of thing does happen, but you need to verify. You need to have pictures. You need to double check the identification. So if you aren't sure, compare what you're hearing against sample sounds associated with each species. So for instance, a number of years ago, I was at Hillman Marsh and I heard a bird species that I didn't recognize. I used Merlin. Merlin said it was a sedge wren. I'm not that familiar with sedge wren. It is a species that there may be one or two or three species in the whole Peely birding count area each year. So it's not impossible, but it's not a common species. So I went to the Macaulay Library, which you can access through Merlin, as I showed you on the last screen, and listened to verified people's recordings of sedge wren. And from that, I confirmed that what I was listening to sounded the same as the verified recordings, and therefore I was confident that I was actually hearing a sedge wren and that I could report it as such. Please never report a species based on Merlin's ID alone. And a good example of that, I was showing somebody how to use Merlin at work. The window was open. It was May. There were birds migrating by, in particular warblers. And Merlin did identify a number of those warblers correctly that were going by. But it also identified a European chaffinch. And it probably did so because both of us were talking as I was showing this other person how the app worked. And somewhere in that, it interpreted that there was a bird from Europe that was outside the window. So you can also, Merlin can also be used to identify photographs. It will take you to your camera. You take a photograph of the species. You can crop it so that you're just seeing the bird as quickly as possible or as close as possible. And then you click next. If you provide most of these apps with permission, it will take information on the date, the time, and your GPS location from your cell phone so that you don't have to enter that information. But it does ask you to verify it. And so it put in January 7th, it put in Leamington, Ontario, which is correct. Now, I went into, it was interesting, I went in to edit that location because I wasn't wanting to show you exactly where I live. And the map that it actually showed me was in Manitoba. And so just for fun, I put in a test Manitoba location as well as verifying the date and click next. And it recommended that the bird I'm looking at is a blue jay, which is correct. There's multiple photos that I can look through to be sure. If it isn't that bird, it does suggest alternates like the eastern bluebird at the bottom of the screen. But in this case, I can say this is my bird, and it gives me two options if I want to report that bird. One is to take me to eBird, which I will show you later on. And the second is to save with Merlin. And basically, again, you're verifying the location and verifying the date, and then you can hit save and you're done. So the next app, this one is strictly an identification app versus a reporting app, is Shroomify. Now, I am suggesting you use Shroomify to identify mushrooms for interest sake only. This app does provide information on foraging tips for edible fungi, and I am not, and Lower Thames is not promoting its use for this purpose. Many fungi are poisonous, some are deadly. So please make no mistake that some mushrooms can kill you. You should never eat a mushroom unless you are absolutely certain of its identity, and this is not what we're promoting here. But it is a good app to figure out what sort of species of mushroom that you are looking at. So you click the Identify Fungi button. From there, you take a look at the different forms of the mushroom, and you click on the one that looks most like the one that you are looking at. You then identify what color the mushroom is, and it will provide you a number of options. And you can then click into any of those options and see more information, both in terms of how to identify it, the habitat it grows, as well as what time of year you would expect to see it in order to help you figure out what species of mushroom that is. So the next app is Clam Counter. Clam Counter was developed by Fisheries and Oceans Canada, along with, I believe, the Toronto Zoo. And this is an app for all across Canada to help you identify freshwater mussels. There is a note to be careful because many mussels share habitat with endangered species, and they don't want you to disturb the habitat of those species. As well, many freshwater mussels, 15 species in our area, are protected by the Species at Risk Act because they are special concern, threatened, or endangered. So it is prohibited to kill, harm, harass, capture, or take any wildlife protected under the Species at Risk Act, or to damage or destroy their habitat. And since many common species share habitat with endangered species, in particular fish, habitat disturbance should be avoided. And there are 18 fish species at risk in our watershed. So you can identify whether you feel you're at a beginner or an expert level. You are required to set up an account so that you sign in, and that way the records that you submit will be saved in your account. And then you get to the home screen on the right where you can identify a mussel, the orange button. You can view all species, and that's equivalent to the button at the bottom for the species list. You can look at your past sightings, and that is also equivalent to the button at the bottom for history. And you can look at mussel threats, which we will look at towards the end. So now you can look at mussels across all of Canada, but if you're trying to identify one locally, it's better to hit the Near Me button to filter the mussels down to the species that would be expected to be found in your area. The other thing you want to make sure is that the location is actually your location. So when I first used this app, even though I was a couple of meters away from the Thames River, it indicated I was on the north shore of Lake Ontario. Now, it does not identify things down to individual river systems. So the area that we are in here is considered the north shore of Lake Erie. So from there, once you've got the location set, you can go to the key. And this key is similar, but a little bit different from the fish one that we previously looked at. In this case, all the questions are available to you from the start, and you don't have to answer them all. You can answer as many or as few as you want. It's fine to say you're not sure about something or to leave one of the questions blank. And in some cases, if you're not a good expert, you may find that if you answer one question wrong, because you're trying to answer every question, it could lead you astray. So I suggest only answering the questions that you're absolutely sure about to give you an idea of which species you're looking at. So I have an example here, and we're going to figure out what it is. We're going to start with the key. And the first question is, does the shell have obvious pustules or nodules? And in brackets, they say circular shape, covering the outer surface. So in layman's terms, does it have bumps? And the answer is yes. This leads us to 4 possible species in the area. Now, if you look at the picture, you could probably already guess which species we're looking at, but we're going to use the key a little bit more to get us down to one individual species. So we're going to go back to the key, press in the top right corner. And that first question actually opened up another question that isn't there unless you answer yes to the first question. And that is, do the pustules or nodules extend onto the beak? Now, the beak is sort of that pointed, let's see if this is the beak. Whoops. There we go. This is the beak of the mussel here. And if you look in the bottom, you can see that these bumps are going right up onto the beak. And the beaks do tend to get worn, so it's a little more difficult to see up here. So that narrows it down to 3 species. If we go to the next question, does the shell have obvious ridges on the outer surface? Now, the ridges aren't the ridges, the growth lines that go around the mussel. The ridges we are looking for are large lumps on the shell. They kind of look like fingers, and this does not have that. So if we answer no, we're now down to 2 species. We're going to look at the key one more time and answer, does the animal have rays or other markings? So rays refer to colored bands that go from the beak to the outer portion of the shell. And there is variation in color here, but it's not what is considered rays. So we're going to answer no to that question, and that takes us down to the purple warty back. And if we click on purple warty back, we get a lot of information in terms of how to identify it, as well as similar species, and we get the option to submit a sighting. So if we go into submit a sighting, again, your cell phone will put in the date, the time, the location, and it will indicate the watershed where it was found. It will ask you to select one of the weather options from sunny, sun and cloudy, cloudy or rainy, and to choose the type of water body. Is it on land, i.e. maybe it was, eaten by a muskrat and is now on land? Is it in a river, a lake, a wetland, or a stream? And then it will ask for photographs. So you can take your cell phone to take photos, or you can use photos previously taken from your photo gallery. And at a minimum, you should be taking 2 pictures. The first one from the outside, from the side of the shell, and the second of the beak. Now, if the individual is dead, then you can look inside the shell and take a picture of the inside of the shell, and I'll tell you why that's important in a little bit. So you take your photos, provide them for why you're around water and any other comments, and submit your sighting. Now, the various questions that they ask fall into a number of categories. So on the left is examples of pustules or nodules. As I said, that's essentially bumps. The ridges on the right, this is a three ridge mussel, and you can see those large ridges look like fingers on the top of the shell. The rays are colored bands stretching from the beak to the outer margin of the shell. And beak structure. Now, not all mussels have beak structure, and some mussels are too worn to be able to see it, but some have single loops around the beak, and some have double loops, and these are sometimes referred to as a butterfly. Some species have a dorsal wing, which stands up quite a bit from the rest of the shell. And then if the mussel is dead, you can look at some of the internal features as well, like shell color. Now, it doesn't show it well here, but species like purple warty back are called that for a reason, because they have a very purple inside to the shell, or at least some of them do, most of them do. The pink heel splitter on the bottom has a nice pink color inside the shell. On this slide, they actually look very similar, but in life they are quite distinct. Again, with dead mussels, mussels have teeth on the inside of the shell, at least most do. There are lateral teeth, which are usually long and thin, and there are pseudocardinal teeth that are more blocky in nature. But there are three species of mussels that do not have teeth, and so that narrows down the selection very, very quickly. The other, if you go back to the home screen, there was that mussel threats tab that will take you to the information on the left here about zebra and quagga mussels. At the bottom right, you can go to the settings and you can switch modes. So when you feel that you've moved from beginner to expert, you can change that. Or if you decided to try expert and want to go back down to being a beginner, you can do that as well. You can change your contact information, and you can also contact the organizers of this app. So there's also a handy field guide that is available from the Sydenham Field Naturalists that was produced by the St. Thomas Field Naturalists, that is a photo field guide to the freshwater mussels of Ontario. The next app is a very simple, straightforward one to use. It is called Seek, and it is very much a point and shoot app. So the first time you press the camera, you will get a notice to remember that seek may not always be correct. They also ask you to be aware of your surroundings, stay safe, and do not trespass. Don't eat anything you find in the wild, and respect other living things by not harassing or touching them, as some things may sting or bite. And the children may also require adult supervision. So once you've read that, you hit continue, and you can take your picture, and you can see in the screen here on the left, whatever natural thing that you point seek at in your camera, it will actually label what it thinks the species is. And in this case, it was actually in the middle of winter. I was indoors, and I just pointed it at a picture, and it still did that identification for red-headed woodpecker. It showed me it was a threatened species and that it is native. And I can then go to my observations and show that I have one species of bird recorded as well, and no other species. Now, I have no other species because I use a related app. It is developed by the same group of people, and I much prefer it, and it is called iNaturalist. Now, Seek is not really a citizen science app. It helps you identify things, but it is not contributing records to science. iNaturalist does contribute records to science, and it's still simple to use. It's still a point and shoot app. It provides you suggestions for identification for you to confirm versus telling you what it is. And once you have identified it, your identifications, whether they are easy or difficult, are verified by a community in order to reach research grade. Once they are research grade, scientists who are doing research are confident to come in and use records of the species that they are interested in, because they know that they have been identified with confidence. So if they're looking at the distribution of a species or other information, then that they are able to download records of species with confidence. In order to do so, it's really important that you take high quality images, because both you as well as the people that are doing the verification need to make an identification of the species with confidence, and or provide an alternate suggestion for the identification. So you start by hitting on the plus button on the bottom, and you have four options. You can take photos in real time, you can upload photos, you can record a sound, or you can ID and camera. Now, I'm not going to go over ID and camera because it's essentially the same as Seek, which I just covered. So we'll start with take photos, and it will lead you to your camera. You can take one or more photos, just as you take any other photo using your camera. And once you've got the photos that you want, you hit the check mark. Now, you can search for the species if you know what it is, but the easier way to do it is just hit the identify button. And the app will tell you with a percentage degree of confidence what species it thinks you have, and it will provide a variety of suggestions. So in this case, it says 94.2% chance that this is yellow giant hyssop. Now, this was not a species I was familiar with at the time, but I could look through the other suggestions, which had low probabilities, and I'm familiar with all of those, and I definitely knew it was not those species. So now I clicked on yellow giant hyssop and go to the page for that species. I can look through additional photos for the species to confirm that that is actually what I am looking at. You can look at a map of where it's found to make sure that there are other records in your area, and read information about the species. You can read more from Wikipedia, and once you're confident that this is the species that you have, you can say select taxon. Now, there's a number of other things that you can enter, and I will go over that in a couple of slides. But basically, once you've done that, you have two options. If you're not worried about data usage, you have unlimited data, you can hit upload now. If you have a limited plan, you can hit save and you can upload it later. So on the right-hand side, you can upload all your observations at once, or you can click on the arrow on the individual species and upload one species at a time. So now we can go to upload photos, and you can upload one or multiple photos of an individual species. And I'll talk about why you may want to upload multiple photos in a while. And once you've uploaded those, once you've hit the add button at the top right there, you'll come back to this screen that you've already seen, and there's a number of other things that you can add. So you can add notes, like if this is a roadkill, or if a bird was found near a nest, or habitat details. Again, the date, time, and location are typically recorded by your phone. And even if you are taking your photo from your photo library, that information is embedded into the photo and is usually imported with that photo. Now, in this case, a lot of times the accuracy is 3 to 5 meters, which is great. In this case, it's 18 meters. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you what we can do about that. But we'll look at geoprivacy first. So typically geoprivacy is set to open, and that's a good place to have it. That means that your records are available to the scientific community for scientific purposes. So you are being a citizen scientist and you are contributing to science. If you mark your records as private, you are not doing citizen science. You are educating yourself, you are gathering records for yourself, but it's not being shared with anybody. However, there are some situations where you may want to obscure a record. And obscuring a record, it's still visible on a map, but the point that appears for it is not in the location where the species was actually found. And this protects the physical location of the species. Now, this is important for species that are considered collectible. And this includes things like orchids, turtles, snakes, and the five-line skinks. Now, the good thing is organizations and groups like Natural Heritage Information Center that collect species at risk information provincially and contribute to COSERO and COSEWIC that assess these species can still get the detailed information of where that species was actually found. But what it means is general Joe public who wants to collect an orchid can't go find a spot and go to it and pick it and potentially decimate a population. The next category is it captive or cultivated? So typically this is set to no, and really iNaturalist doesn't really want records of captive or cultivated species, but there are some cases where you may end up wanting to use it. So I do habitat restoration on my property. Some of the species we plant are from seed that is scattered. And as these species come up, I do like to record that we now have these species on our property. But in this case, I would consider that I have cultivated that seed. And lastly, you can join individual projects that are in your local area if you wish. So let's go back to the location and see if we can make it better. So if we look at this particular record, this was a plant species, and you can see that it is actually apparently growing out of the pavement of a parking lot, which is not where I took the record from. So I am able to physically move the crosshairs to the approximate location where I took the picture and save it. Now, it is not going to modify that 18-meter accuracy. In fact, in my experience, I think it usually puts a 20-meter accuracy on locations that you have moved around. But the crosshairs are now on the location where I found the species versus on pavement. The right-hand side shows you local projects that are found in the area, and you can go in these, learn more about them, and decide if you would like to contribute to them. The only thing that I would caution you about is that anybody can set up a project. And so if you're looking at a project, say for turtles or snakes or orchids, do some serious looking at who is organizing it and make sure they're legitimate so that you are not contributing records to somebody who might want to collect. Now, I haven't specifically run across any of those issues, but it is a possibility. And in some cases, you can see partway down the list there, somebody has set up My Yard Biodiversity. So they have set up a project on their property. And that's possible for you to do as well. So one of the other fun things with iNaturalist is you can explore records that are in the area. And so you hit the button on the bottom, you can filter by all sorts of different things and apply those filters. And bottom left, you can look at that information in 3 different ways, either on a map, in a grid format, or in a list format. And from there, you can click on any of those records. So I've clicked on Burr Oak on both of these cases, and doing that both times will take me to the right-hand screen that shows a record that I did of Burr Oak. It will also show at the bottom of the screen that Kira McManus is supporting my identification, so she has verified it. And then this little ribbon here that shows two people and a check mark is the symbol to show that this record is research grade. You can do the same thing from a map. You can click on an individual pin. Again, this is a record of Bird's Eye Speedwell from one of our CAs, and it has been verified by another person and is also research grade. Now, you can also record sounds. So you have to physically hit the microphone button to start recording and press on the square to stop recording. Now, I cheated with this one. I think I tapped on my desk, so it's not a true record, it's a recording, but not of anything wild. But this was just an example which didn't actually get saved. Once you have done your recording, you hit the check mark. You come to the same sort of screen as if you had included photos. And in some cases, you could include a photo as well as a sound of a species. If you just have sound, at this point, iNaturalist is not identifying from sound alone. So you have to figure out what it is that you're listening to. Use the search function, type in the name of the species, and select that species. You can then go to the species page, select the taxon, and the rest is the same in terms of saving or uploading. Now, April 24th to 27th of this year, iNaturalist is having a City Nature Challenge, and you are invited to participate in this. So locally, the municipality of Chatham-Kent does have a group which you can join. But if you aren't in Chatham-Kent and you are still interested, Canadian Wildlife Federation is allowing people to join where there are non-registered cities, or if you live out in the country and that particular area does not have a group registration. So please join, have some fun. The idea is to record as many species as you can in the time frame and see which city or area wins. Now, I told you I talked to you about EDDMaps. This is the Early Detection Distribution Mapping System, and it is specifically for citizen science related to invasive species. So the first thing you can do is just learn more about invasive species. So you can click on plants, for instance, go to aquatic plants and look at water lettuce. And it will give you lots of information about the species and its appearance and its ecological threats. And you can look at sightings that are found in your area. In this case, the pin is a location in McGregor Creek that I found water lettuce in a few years back. You can also explore nearby reports, and you can zoom into that same record and click on it from there and find out the date and more information. Or you can do a new sighting. So you click on Add or Edit a Species. Again, date, time, and location should be added for you, provided you give the app permission. And you take a photo, identify. You have to do the identification yourself in this app. It does not do it for you. So in this case, I did plants, aquatic plants, and purple loosestrife. Add your photo, and then it wants some information in terms of how much time you spent at this location and some information about the infestation. So how much time did you spend in minutes? Is it a species that is present and therefore positive? Is it something that you are treating? Or is it something that maybe you have treated and you've come back to monitor it and hopefully it's not there anymore? It also wants to know the size of the infested area and the density and any other notes that you can provide, and then you save it. You then can go to the upload queue and see that record, and then go to the lines on the top. You can upload all, select an individual record to upload or delete, or you can clear uploaded data. The Wildlife Health Tracker is another app for your cell phone. A number of languages are available, and it's used for reporting, typically for reporting sick or dead wildlife, but it can also be used to report healthy wildlife. Either option you choose, you start with selecting your province. In this case, my example is a red fox that I observed in August of 2024. It had a badly scarred muzzle, likely from an encounter with a porcupine, and it was actually feeding on roadkill along the side of a road, just outside of Algonquin Provincial Park. So I recorded one sick individual and then click next, because I didn't want to go back. I was doing this for the presentation. I didn't want to go back and figure out exactly where I had it. I simply, for example purposes, said use my current location, but you can't, obviously you should be putting in the proper location. I didn't submit this record. You want to drag your pictures into the box for the photos and click next. So it will add in the address information. It will provide a map of where you told it was. It asks for your contact information, including a phone number, and asks if you would like the Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative to contact you, either yes or no, and that submits your record. Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative will also, there are our group in Ontario is located at the University of Guelph, and they will take samples or whole carcasses of animals to determine what the cause of death was. Now, and this is, for instance, if you find a bird on your lawn, in the past, I have sent them spiny soft-shelled turtles that washed up on the beach at Point Pelee National Park that had no physical signs of injury from being hit by a boat. So there was no evident reason for their death. Now, I would recommend, rather than collecting it yourself, you first contact your local health unit. And if they are interested, they will probably come out and do the collection for you. But if that is not the case, and if you are interested, please contact the Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative, and they will provide you with information on how to safely handle the animal and how to get the animal to them, or if in some cases they may come and investigate themselves. eBird is a very common citizen science app that millions of people around the world are now using. It does not directly identify bird species for you, but it will help you with bird identification. Essentially, what it is doing is allowing you to keep a checklist of the birds that you see at any particular time. So a lot of mornings I sit and eat my breakfast at the table where I can see the bird feeders, and I do a bird list. Or when I go out for a walk along a nice trail, I will do a bird list. So you start your checklist, and then you click on the plus beside the species that you have seen for the number of species that you have seen. You can put in X in the spot to say that you have seen the species and you didn't count it. But for citizen science purposes, it is far preferred that you provide an exact number or an estimate. If you're looking at hundreds of birds, do a guesstimate of how many you think there are and put it in. And you can always put in the notes that you've done an estimate. Now, you can, after you've entered a few species, you can click on the number at the bottom, and that will take you to the subset of the bird species that you've listed. I added another one here. And if you want to know anything about the bird species, you can click on that individual bird and it will take you to Merlin, which we've talked about, to a species description, shows you pictures of the species, a description of it, examples of its songs and calls, as well as a range map of where it should be in different seasons of the year. The other fun thing to do with eBird is explore. So this will allow you to look at the county that you are in to see what species have been seen in the last 3 days or 7 days or longer periods of time. So in this case, I was in Chatham, Kent. 82 species had been seen in the last 7 days, and there were 2 targets. Now, targets are the species that you have not seen yet. And in this case, this was in comparison to my Canada Life list for the year 2025. So you can set what you want it to compare against. You can set it for a Chatham Kent list, or you can compare it to your life list, or a Canadian list, whatever you want. So in this case, it told me that people in the last 7 days in Chatham, Kent, have seen greater white-fronted goose and pine siskin, both species at the time that I had not seen. And if you click on either of those species, then you can then see and get a list of where those species have been seen. And in this case, for some reason, my example is cackling goose, but it would show you pine siskin or greater white-fronted goose, depending on which one you clicked on. You can also look at hotspots. So there are 113 hotspots where people go birding in Chatham, Kent. I'm sure there's other places that people go birding, and you can set up your own hotspots that other people aren't invited to. But in this case, I went to C.M. Wilson Conservation Area, which was the closest to where I was. And it says that 111 species have been seen there since eBird started. And you can click on that, look at all the different species. Again, it shows greater white-fronted goose has that sort of bullseye target beside it that says, I haven't seen it yet. And if you look under the species, you can see a bar chart, which the blue bars show you when the most likely time is that you will see those species at that particular site. The other fun thing to do if you're interested and into birding is you can generate life lists and other types of lists from eBird. So you click on My eBird. In this case, it's set to my Chatham Kent list, but you can do lists for counties, the province, the country, or other countries. So in this case, it shows I had 171 species by December 22nd of 2025, and it shows a comparison of how I had done in previous years. And this is just for Chatham, Kent. If you go to the settings, you can upload bird lists for other areas. So bird lists are typically downloaded per in Canada, they're downloaded by province, but in other places, they may be downloaded by country or by regions. And so you can then look at your life lists or a year list related to these different areas. You can also look at checklists that you've submitted and those that you have not submitted. Another project that is also managed by the Cornell Lab, which is where the Merlin app comes from, as well as Birds Canada, is Project Feeder Watch. And I'm just going to briefly touch on this. So you can sign in, make an account, you can create a new site. So these are our home feeders, and the monitoring is done over the winter months, and you do it on a weekend basis. So it's not every day, it's Saturday and Sunday only. It will indicate for us, there are 20 possible species, and it will let you click the number of species that or the number of individuals you have of each species. And for some species like the house finch, they're interested in knowing, is there eye disease present? And so you can indicate that there isn't. You can indicate that you didn't look for it and keep track of it, or you looked for it and you didn't find it. It will also ask you if there's other mammals present, if there's birds reported, and if there's other interactions. And you can decide whether you are interested in recording this information or not, and then you can save it. Adopt a Pond is a project of the Toronto Zoo, and you can submit sightings here for turtles or frogs very simply. They're very similar. Now, to begin with, you need to know what species you're submitting, and if you don't, I'll show you what to do. But select your species, and then for turtles, record the number seen, the habitat, and the behavior. For amphibians or frogs, record the abundance, the habitat, the air temperature, and the water temperature. If you don't have them, I think you can probably still submit using the confirm button in the bottom right. Now, it will provide your location based on the information it gets from your cell phone. It will ask you for a photo and whether or not you provide permission for them to use that photo, and asks for a description before you submit the sighting. Now, if you don't know what your species is, you can go to the identification guides and you can click through the various species, look at pictures of the species, and the descriptions until you find the one that is what you are looking at. And then you can click the submit the sighting button and do exactly what we just did on the previous slide. Now, we move to the website portals. The first one is Journey North, and Journey North, most people associate with monarch butterflies, but it's now much more than that. So again, you do need to set up an account, but it's free, and it's very easy to do. And then you go to report an observation. You put in the date of the observation. You can either put in your current address or search for an address, and you select a project. And so the projects include things like monarchs and milkweeds, tulips, robins, signs of the seasons, hummingbirds, loons and ice phenology, orioles, and so on. And depending on which project you choose, you will get a different form to fill out. So this is the one for robins, asking which project and species, life stage, if it's your first observation of the spring, how many you saw, and so on. And then you can preview your data, make sure it's correct, and submit it. You can also explore data here, and you can filter by the type of data, the location, the date range, and so on that you would like to explore. And you can look at maps of the data that they have provided. So in this case, I'm going to look at adult monarchs on their spring migration last year. And if you actually look at this on their website, it will actually show you the spread. So it's like a video showing you the spread of the monarchs over time last spring. Neighborhood Bat Watch helps to monitor and develop strategies to conserve bats. So you can be involved in locating bat colonies and counting the number of bats living in them. Now, again, there's a warning here because bats can carry diseases, and those diseases can result in fatalities. Most people know that bats can carry rabies, and it's a very small proportion of the population. I'm not looking to vilify bats, but you don't want to be handling bats, and that's not what we're promoting here. The other disease is histoplasmosis, and it can transfer through the air from guano or feces from bats. And so we want you to avoid going into confined spaces where guano or feces may be present. So we're not encouraging you to run up into your attic and go searching for bats. If you are going into confined spaces, you should be wearing proper breathing apparatus, but this is not what we're promoting here. Counting bats can actually be done by watching them emerge from a building at dusk. You usually need a group of people to do it because you want to place people on all four sides of your building to make sure that you see all the bats coming out. So you start just before dusk, maybe half an hour before, and you watch for at least a half an hour after dusk, and you do a count. You're not touching anything, you're not coming in contact with the feces, and there's not going to be any issue doing that sort of monitoring. Now, moth monitors is a new one that I've just found. It is one of a number of projects that is coordinated by the Land Between. They do provide online training, and essentially you set out a 1 meter by 1 meter white surface and shine a black light at it half an hour before sunset, record your survey conditions, and then you take photos of the cloth, both the whole cloth as well as each quarter section of the cloth, and actually any moth that you find on the cloth, and you report that online. And they do provide assistance for helping you in the identification process. Although I would also recommend that iNaturalist is really good at helping you do this identification. So a project separate from moth monitors that I did just for fun in my backyard last year was I put out 2 white bed sheets. I hung them out about mid-September, and I would recommend, I'm going to do it a lot earlier this year to start with. And I shone a reptile warming light on one and a black light on the other. Tried to start them before sunset, and I watched things on and off, usually right up till midnight. And in 6 weeks of doing this, so through mid-September, all of October into mid-November, I had over 300 species of different insects show up. The vast majority were moths, but I also had stink bugs, crickets, mosquitoes, other beetles, and flies show up. And this is just a very small subset of what myself and my partner had on those sheets in those 6 weeks. And these are just some of the more cool ones. It's really, really interesting and a fun project to do. Really tiring as well if you stay up late, but it was well worth it. Nature Watch is a group that engages people in citizen science, and they have 5 different programs that we'll go over quickly. For all of the programs, the first thing you're going to do is select your program and select your location. From there, there will be a specific form for the project that you're interested in that they ask you to fill out. So Frog Watch helps you learn to identify frog and toad calls and allows you to collect data on amphibian distribution. You share your results, and you're contributing to data related to global climate changes and population trends. Plant Watch is recording flowering times for selected plant species, and this helps identify ecological changes affecting the environment. Earthworms are very sensitive to soil disturbance, so Worm Watch introduces you to worm anatomy and ecology and provides the tools and resources to enable you to identify and monitor worms. And this helps scientists determine how many earthworm species are in Canada and where they live. Milkweed Watch identifies the location of milkweed plants that are crucial for monarch reproduction, and this is to help protect, preserve, and foster milkweed across Canada. Ice Watch allows you to record the yearly freeze and thaw dates of lakes and rivers in your area, and this helps monitor the effects of climate change on Canadian ecosystems. Now, CoCoRaHS is the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. It is used to measure and map precipitation in the form of rain, hail, or snow. both how much as well as where. And that data is used by farmers, emergency managers, local meteorologists, airports, mosquito control, local sports teams, and river forecasting for early flood warnings. You do have to apply to be part of this project. You do need to purchase 4-inch diameter rain gauge and complete training, either online or in person. And you do have to commit to emptying a rain gauge daily at a specific time. Almost done. Basically, we're just going to look now a little bit at citizen science best practices. So, the first and one of the most important things is respect landowner rights, never trespass on private property. And even if you do have permission to go on private property, please ask the landowner permission prior to submitting records on their property. Just because they allow you to do it doesn't mean they want public records on their property. Also, absolutely do not post records on Indigenous lands without the band's express permission. There is a concept called OCAP, which indicates ownership, control, access, and possession of all data related to First Nations lands lie with the First Nation or Indigenous community. So please respect that. Please also respect and do not disturb wildlife, pick or trample plants to get to a record. Personal safety is also of utmost importance. So be aware of your surroundings and stay safe. Watch for people, plants, and wildlife. So along the side here, bees can sting, poison ivy can provide skin rashes, black-legged or deer tick can carry Lyme disease. And in terms of not disturbing wildlife, if you're close enough to take a picture of baby birds in a nest, you are probably causing a disturbance unless you have a really big telephoto lens. And in these cases, you really want to watch for the reactions of the adults, and if they are distressed, leave. Please remember the adage, garbage in equals garbage out. As best as you can, please provide high quality images. And I know this isn't always possible. Just try and follow a fast moving bee, and it can be really challenging. But try and show the key features used to identify a species. So for instance, if you're taking pictures of a mushroom, not only take pictures from the top or side, but also take a picture from underneath, because the way the ribs look is important in the identification. If you're taking a picture of a tree, take a picture of the whole form of the tree, but also of the bark, of the leaves, of either the flowers or the fruit if they're available, or the buds, or the branching structure, because all those things are going to help both you as well as people who are verifying your records ensure that they can identify the species and confirm what it is. Wrong identifications compromise data sets and take time to fix if they're even noticed. And it is okay to say that you don't know what something is. Just identify it as far as you can. So don't leave it to the experts, though, to do the identification for you. It's not cool to put something up and say, here's a plant, identify it for me. But if you get it to sunflower and you can't figure out which sunflower it is, it's okay to put it in the group with sunflowers and hope somebody else is going to come along and say, oh yeah, it's this particular species. Lastly, why should you bother with citizen science? And citizen science really promotes continual learning. And if you are like me, I like learning all the time. It also develops identification skills. So if you or kids or friends are wanting to go into the biological field or environmental field, this can really help. It also contributes to awareness of the local environment, and an improved understanding of the world does promote environmental protection. So it's very important. It's also easier to believe scientific results based on work that you have been involved in, because it's inclusive and it's transparent. Identifying species distribution, including both range expansions and contractions, can contribute to species recovery. And contributing data enables scientific research with wide-ranging benefits, helping to identify and resolve environmental and other challenges. Lastly, the Lower Thames has a number of resources which may help you in identification. These are available both in hard copy as well as digitally on our website. So please go take a look or visit our office. We have Fish and Mussel Aquatic Species at Risk guidebooks. We have a lamprey guide for Ontario, and most lampreys, all except one, are native species that we encourage people to return to the water if they catch them, with the exception of sea lamprey. We have an identification guide for species at risk in Rondeau Bay and other species that they are similar to, and an identification guide for red horse species in the Thames River, showing the differences from similar non-red horse species. So apologies for how long the presentation is, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it will encourage you to become involved in citizen science.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vicky. That was very interesting. Definitely learned about a few new apps myself that I'm kind of eager to learn. And I hope it inspired everyone with the warmer weather coming now to start getting outside and seeing all of the awesome local flora and fauna we have. So we have quite a few questions here already. If you have any more questions, please just drop them in the Q&A, or feel free to contact us via our social media or website. Again, my name is Alyssa if you want to send me an email about anything, and we can connect you with whoever you have a question with for. So one, and this is back to, I believe, the beginning about the mussel app. So does the Clam Counter app tell you if a mussel is a species at risk after you find it? And then I think the next one is connected. I was under the impression that you couldn't handle a species at risk. So how does that work if I don't know if it's a species at risk until I touch it slash ID it?
Okay, good question. I'm going to see if I can get back to the beginning of the presentation. It just disappeared entirely. Just a minute. Let's go back to sharing here. See if it'll let me reshare. Okay, so Clam Counter. Those are really good questions. Let's take a look at it doesn't actually look like it tells you if it is a species at risk, and that is probably because the status of species at risk can change over time. So I am a little surprised with that. There is no problem handling dead individuals, although you can't keep them. In my own creek, I actually took photographs of a mussel as it, I knew it was a species at risk while it was lying on the bottom. So it was in very shallow water. So it isn't necessarily advisable to go out and start fishing around and collecting mussels. But sometimes we do find mussels that have either been predated by mink or muskrats that are along the side of creeks or rivers, or that have just died, that those identifications can be done on. So if you're not sure if it's a species at risk, it is better not to handle it unless it's dead.
Awesome. Okay, moving on. Oh, this is a fun one. What's the coolest thing you have personally ever recorded on iNaturalist?
think the coolest thing on my property was an assassin bug. And I had no idea what it was. It was actually fairly tiny, but very odd looking and yeah.
I feel like a few of us are going to be looking that up after this. Okay, here's another one. And I'm not sure if you'll have the answer to this, Vicky. Just to preface this, the City Nature Challenge is primarily being run by the municipality. So if you have any questions about that, we can always direct you to the appropriate contact there. But this question is for that City Nature Challenge, does every submission have to be different?
So the rules for iNaturalist in general, you shouldn't take a picture of or so you shouldn't be submitting multiple records of the same individual on the same day. And any record that you submit, you should be submitting just one individual. So you don't want to take multiple pictures of 5 different individuals and put it all in one record. So it is okay to record the same individual on multiple days because that gives us information on the how long an individual is in an area. So for instance, when I was doing moth monitoring, I had some underwing moths, which were really pretty, that stayed in the area for 1 or 2 nights. And so when I had that happen, I did take a picture of them on the 2 different nights. But typically you're wanting to find as many different species as possible. And I will be honest, specifically for the for this particular challenge, I don't know if the winner is based on the number of records or the number of species. So that's something we would have to double check.
Awesome. Okay. What is a good target for number of birds per year on eBird if you're just starting out? So for a beginner here, what should we be aiming for?
Um, it entirely depends on you. I can find at times that if you set yourself targets, you can make something that is a fun activity stressful. And you don't want to do that. So myself and my partner tend to be a little bit competitive and invariably because I need to go into the washroom at some point in the day and he doesn't necessarily. He typically ends up with 1 or more species of birds than I do. So I would simply be happy with what you see yourself. So for instance, I did an eBird checklist today. I think for my feeders, I worked from home today. And I think over the course of the day, mostly first thing in the morning and at lunch, I had 14 species of birds. The higher numbers, like people who are getting 175 or 200 species of birds in a year in the local area are consistently going out probably on most weekends, a lot of evenings, going to different spots and actively looking for birds all the time. And for some people, that's really, really fun. But as I said, if you set a hard target, and particularly if you're beginning, it might be a little stressful. So, yeah, if I were you, I wouldn't set a target, and I would just see your first year challenge. I'd say just see how many you can get, and once you've done that, and if you've had fun with it, then maybe look at setting a target for a future year. And take a look at which species groups that maybe you didn't see a lot of and think about what habitats that you could go to. So maybe a marsh for ducks or shoreline areas for or sewage lagoons for shorebirds. in the right season, and that can help you get more species.
Mhm. Great answer. Okay. Is there an easy way to ID a bat? I can never get a close enough look. Dot, dot, dot.
Um, I would suggest no, there's not really an easy way to identify them. Most identifications are in the hand by experts. There are devices sold by a number of different companies that you can attach to a cell phone that will pick up the sounds of bats in the area and help identify or suggest identifications. Some of them, probably all of them, may also identify species that are not found in your area, and then it's up to you to figure out which one or ones it may be. So it gives you an idea of what it might be, but it still comes down to you. Um, so yeah, you'd have to contact the neighborhood bat watch to get their suggestions and recommendations. Quite often, the species that are found in buildings are it's one of the either little brown or big brown bats. Um,
Hmm. Awesome. Okay. Um, so I think this one is in reference to, not going on private land without permission. How would you find slash approach the landowner to ask for permission if you don't necessarily know who they are?
Um, so we've done this for Christmas bird counts. In some cases, we've had landowners come up to us while we're, say, bird watching from the road, and have a chat with the landowner. Quite often they're checking out to see if you're doing something untoward. And if the conversation goes well, you can potentially ask for permission for a specific purpose. In other cases, you walk up to the door and knock on the door and ask for permission. Or you might ask a friend if they know who owns that property and who to approach to ask.
Hmm, awesome. Okay. Um, are there any local workshops, Chatham area, on how to take good pictures, etc., for the apps, like a guided trail walk?
Um, I don't think there's anything specifically on that topic. Chatham does have a camera club that could help. They typically are more involved with higher end cameras, and I should say that I will in some cases take a picture with my cell phone, take a better picture with my good camera, and then add it later on the website. Um, However, there are groups from time to time, like iNaturalist, that will provide workshops on how to do good iNaturalist records. So I would Google that, and you can probably come up with some that have been recorded that you could watch.
And if you are a local, sometimes Nature CK, the old Sydenham Field Naturalist, does do nature walks, and there's a very good chance that someone on that nature walk would know what they're doing if you're looking for any tips. So that might be a good idea to tag along on.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think it looks like we have one more question for right now, unless there's any last minute ones that sneak in. Um, are eBird and Merlin the same? Do I need to download both apps?
eBird and Merlin are not the same, but they are connected. So yes, you do need to download both apps. And both apps, eBird is free. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure Merlin, I think, is free, but there may be a charge to it. So don't quote me on that. So eBird allows you to do bird checklists. And if you need help identifying a bird species, um, or if you want more information about a bird, you can link to Merlin from iNat or from eBird. Merlin helps you identify birds by song as well as by photograph.
Yeah,
I
awesome.
would
And
recommend.
if I remember correctly, Merlin, I believe, is free as well because I don't normally pay for apps and I have Merlin. So, awesome. Okay. Well, it looks like that's all the questions for today. Those are some great questions, everyone. And again, great presentation, Vicky. Thank you so much. And for everyone, like I said, we will be posting this on our YouTube channel within the next week or so. If you want to get anything back, or feel free to reach out to us, for any questions. So with that, have a great rest of your night, everybody. We'll see ya.
Take care.